The display fizzled into life, casting cool blue light over the stern features of Captain Marcus Flint. As he surveyed the room, the distinct clatter of keystrokes filled the air, a constant reminder of the urgency they all felt. Marcus stood at the center of Earth Defense Command, a room bristling with screens and the quiet tension of anticipation. "Status report," Marcus demanded, his voice cutting through the low buzz of activity with precision. Lieutenant Hawk, a man of few words but meticulous action, responded without turning from his console. "Unknown vessel approaching, Captain. No known signatures. It's like nothing we've ever seen." Marcus approached, eyes narrowed. The display showed a sleek silver object, its design both elegant and ominous, slicing through the void of space with purpose. It was close, too close for comfort, and their sensors had only just caught it, a silent testament to its advanced stealth capabilities. "This is not a drill," Marcus announced to the room, every officer snapping to attention. His mind raced. An unknown entity this deep in Earth's territory was no minor threat. "I want options, people, now." As strategy suggestions began to bubble up from his crew, Marcus felt the weight of command press upon him. Each decision could tip the scales in unforeseen ways. The alien craft continued its steady approach, indifferent to the scrambling defense efforts. "Visual," Marcus commanded. The front screen shifted, magnifying the approaching vessel. It gleamed under the distant sun, its surface smooth and unmarked by any insignia. It was not just a ship, it was a message. "Prepare the interceptors, but hold fire. We need to know why it's here," Marcus decided, his directive clear. His gaze lingered on the screen, a cold knot of resolve forming in his stomach. The room hummed with calculated activity as his order was carried out. Marcus's hands clasped behind his back, a calm exterior belying the storm of strategies forming in his mind. Whatever this was, Earth would be ready. The first move in this unexpected game had been made, and Marcus Flint was no stranger to the complexities of cosmic chess. As the seconds ticked down to the inevitable meeting, Marcus knew the eyes of the world, and possibly others, were now fixed firmly upon them. The unknown always carried a shadow of fear, but in that shadow Marcus saw opportunity. Today, Earth would not simply watch. It would respond with the full force of human ingenuity and courage. This silent invader had come unannounced, its intentions cloaked in mystery. Yet, under Marcus Flint's command, Earth would neither falter nor be caught unprepared. They would face the unknown head-on, as they had done countless times before. The game was on, and Marcus Flint was ready to lead the charge. Marcus Flint's gaze remained fixed on the advancing silhouette of the alien vessel, its sleek form slicing through the cosmos with unnerving silence. The gentle vibrations of the command deck under his feet were the only indication of their own ship's readiness, a stark contrast to the quiet approach of the unknown. "Captain, the interceptors are in position," Lieutenant Hawk reported, his voice steady despite the palpable tension that thickened the air around them. "Good. Keep them on standby." "We don't strike first," Marcus replied, his eyes never leaving the view screen. The scent of freshly brewed coffee wafted from the mess hall, mingling with the sterile chill of circulated air, a brief reminder of mundane comforts amidst the brewing storm. The command room doors slid open with a soft hiss, and Dr. Emil Larsen entered, his presence marked by a slight shift in the room's dynamics. Emil was the ship's chief xenologist, his expertise critical under the current circumstances. "Marcus, any communication from them?" Emil asked, approaching with a quiet urgency, his tablet aglow with data. "Nothing. It's like they want to be seen but not heard," Marcus responded, finally tearing his eyes away from the display to acknowledge his old friend. Emil nodded, tapping at his device. "I've analyzed the telemetry. There's a pattern in their approach that suggests observation, not aggression. Perhaps they're as curious about us as we are about them." Marcus considered this, turning back to the starscape. "Or it's a precursor to something more sinister. Keep trying to hail them, and get me a full analysis of that pattern." "Yes, Captain," Emil confirmed, stepping aside as Marcus moved toward the central table where the rest of his senior officers had gathered. "Let's theorize we're not the hunters here, but the hunted," Marcus started, his tone commanding yet open to inputs. "Tactical options?" Commander Zhao, the tactical officer, responded with a crisp nod. "We could deploy a decoy probe, see if they take the bait. It might reveal more about their capabilities." "And expose our hand too soon," Marcus countered, his mind racing through scenarios. "No, we need something subtler. Surveillance drones, perhaps, equipped with passive sensors. Let's not provoke them yet." As the crew set to work, the soft clatter of keyboards and whispered conversations filled the room, creating a soundscape of focused activity. Marcus felt the cool metal of the console under his touch, a grounding sensation as he prepared for the possibilities ahead. Outside, the vastness of space enveloped the ship, the stars a tapestry of light against the overwhelming darkness. Marcus allowed himself a moment to feel the weight of isolation, the bitter taste of black coffee lingering on his tongue as he turned his thoughts back to the task at hand. "We hold our ground," he concluded, his voice resolute. "Monitor, observe, and be ready. We're on the edge of the unknown, and it's up to us to ensure it doesn't swallow us whole." With that, Marcus set his crew to their tasks, each member attuned to the gravity of their mission, ready to face whatever secrets the cosmos held. Marcus stood solemnly at the panoramic window of the command center, watching the alien vessel maintain its eerie vigil just beyond their perimeter. Its presence was a silent storm brewing on the horizon, a tempest shrouded in the velvet blackness of space. The stars, distant and indifferent, twinkled like the eyes of ancient watchers, unfazed by the unfolding drama. Emil approached quietly, his voice breaking the contemplative silence. "We've attempted communication again, Marcus. No response, but we did record some unusual electromagnetic discharges. It's like listening to the heartbeat of a giant made of stars." Marcus turned, his expression thoughtful. "Keep a log of every anomaly. It might be the key to understanding their intentions," he instructed, his gaze returning to the cold glow of the alien ship. In the war room, the senior staff assembled around a sleek table that reflected the soft blue of the overhead lights. The air was tinged with a crisp metallic scent, the smell of technology at work. Maps and data feeds hovered in the air above the table, a ballet of information orchestrated by the swift gestures of the crew. "Let's think beyond a military confrontation," Marcus began, his voice calm yet commanding. "Emil, what do we know about their culture? Anything in their signals that can hint at their values or history?" Emil adjusted his glasses, tapping on his tablet to bring up a series of complex symbols that had been decoded from the alien transmission. "Their language is highly contextual, suggesting a culture that values layers of meaning," he shared, pointing to a symbol that morphed depending on its position in a sequence. "It's possible that this mission is a form of ritualistic testing or even diplomacy," Commander Zhao chimed in, her tone skeptical, "or a prelude to invasion. We should prepare for all scenarios." Her hands were steady as she outlined potential defensive maneuvers, each move casting ripples across the digital battlefield displayed before them. Marcus listened, his senses tuned to the undercurrents of his team's dynamics. The room was a crucible of potential, each officer a blade being tempered by the heat of crisis. He could taste the tang of resolve in the air, could almost feel the pulse of collective human courage that thrummed through the veins of the ship. "Prepare the drones for a non-invasive recon sweep. I want eyes on that ship without crossing into their comfort zone. Zhao, set up a defensive perimeter but hold back on any aggressive posturing. We need to show strength, yet offer an olive branch," Marcus decided, his decision threading the needle between caution and curiosity. As the meeting dispersed, Marcus stayed back, his fingers brushing over the cool, smooth surface of the table. The reflection of the holograms danced in his eyes, each light a whisper of possibility. The weight of command was a silent companion, its presence as constant as the hum of the ship's heart, beating a quiet rhythm in the vast emptiness of space. He knew that the path ahead was woven with shadows and light, a tapestry of the unknown that they must navigate with care. This encounter was not just a test of military prowess, but of humanity's ability to face the unknown with intellect and empathy. As he turned to leave, the soft echo of his footsteps reminded him that, in the vast chorus of the cosmos, Earth's voice was small, yet it must speak with clarity and wisdom. Marcus studied the intricate map displayed before him, the interlocking circles and lines a silent enigma crafted in light. Could this be coordinates? He mused aloud, the weight of decision pressing upon him. Possibly a rendezvous point, Dr. Emil Larsen replied, peering over his shoulder with a mix of curiosity and caution. If we decode this properly, it might lead us straight to them or into a trap. The air in the command center was thick with the scent of anticipation, laced with the faint aroma of coffee that someone had brought in from the mess hall. Marcus's team was arrayed around him, a tableau of focused intensity. Let's cross-reference these coordinates with known stellar maps, Marcus decided, turning to his navigator. I want a full risk assessment before we even consider moving into that area. The navigator nodded, his fingers dancing across the console, bringing up a star chart that slowly began to populate with data. Each star a potential guidepost, each nebula a veil of mystery, as the potential destination began to clarify. A remote system on the edge of uncharted space. Lieutenant Hawk's eyes were sharp as he watched the data streams. I'll prepare the probes for a preliminary scout. We'll know what we're heading into before we make the jump. Marcus gave a nod of approval, his gaze returning to the alien map. The digital rendering of their course plotted a thread through the cosmos, a delicate path woven through the fabric of space and time. The quiet whir of computers and the soft murmur of his crew filled the space, a symphony of human endeavor in the face of the unknown. Keep all communications open and boost sensor sensitivity. Anything out of ordinary, I want it flagged, Marcus instructed, his voice steady, betraying none of the adrenaline that coursed through his veins. Emil stood beside him, his brow furrowed in thought. This feels historic, Marcus. We're stepping into a story that's bigger than any of us can fully grasp. Marcus looked at him, a slight smile breaking through his stoic demeanor. Let's make sure it's one worth telling. The preparations continued, the ship bristling with activity as it readied for the journey ahead. The hum of activity was punctuated by the clank of tools and the subtle shifts of the crew preparing for potential contact or conflict. As the coordinates were set and the ship's engines began to thrum with contained power, Marcus walked to the observation deck. He stood there, alone with the stars, feeling the ship breathe around him. The distant rumble of the engines was a promise of motion, the taste of metal in the air an echo of the vast cold universe that awaited them. Outside, the cosmos lay vast and deep, a tapestry of light against the consuming dark. The alien invitation was a thread, tugging them towards a destiny unknown. Marcus watched as the first stars began to shift, the view stretching as space itself warped in preparation for their leap. We are crossing the threshold, he whispered to himself, the deck vibrating slightly underfoot as the ship engaged its drive. The stars blurred into lines, the universe reaching out to embrace them with silent, open arms. As Commander John Avery approached the glowing screens in the war room, his silhouette cast long shadows on the floor. The images flickering on the display were like nothing he had seen before, vast, shadowy figures moving beneath the Earth's surface, their shapes obscure but immense. "What are we looking at?" Avery demanded, his voice steady but filled with an intensity that mirrored the gravity of the situation. Lieutenant Harris adjusted the controls, enhancing the resolution of the images. "It appears to be a network of tunnels, sir. Something or someone is creating them, moving towards our defenses." The room fell silent, the weight of every gaze fixed on the screen. The tunnels were like veins, pulsing with unknown life, their purpose a mystery that chilled the air. Could the Empire have deployed some form of subterranean unit without our knowledge? Sergeant Major Cole mused aloud, his brow furrowed in concern. Avery considered this, his mind racing through possibilities. Possibly. Or perhaps we're dealing with a new ally or an old nemesis of the Empire, unknown to us until now. The thought hung in the air, tangy with the metallic scent of electronic equipment working overtime. The taste of stale coffee lingered on Avery's tongue as he made his decision. Enhance surveillance on those tunnels. Deploy seismic sensors along their projected paths. I want eyes, or whatever we can manage, on whatever's down there, he instructed, turning to face his team. As the orders were carried out, the vibrations beneath their feet grew more pronounced, a constant reminder of the unseen forces at play. Avery stepped outside, the cool night air a sharp contrast to the stifled atmosphere of the command center. The ground beneath him felt alive, each tremor a heartbeat of the unknown entity approaching. Back inside, Harris monitored the new data streaming in. The vibrations are increasing. Whatever it is, it's big and getting closer. Avery returned to the command center just in time to see the seismic sensors light up in a symphony of alerts. The entity was moving faster now, its approach relentless. "Prepare for contact," Avery said, his voice a calm command amidst the rising tension. "And get me a direct line to the front line units. They need to be ready for anything." The soldiers at the observation posts could feel the ground shifting under them, a dull roar growing beneath the surface that drowned out the distant sounds of battle. The air was thick with the earthy scent of upturned soil, mixed with the sharp ozone tang following a laser discharge. Suddenly, the ground erupted not far from the main line of defense, a massive form breaking through with a sound like thunder. Dirt and debris flew into the air, showering the nearby troops who watched in awe and horror. In the war room, Avery and his team watched the live feed, the creature, or machine, revealed in the harsh light of emergency flares. It was unlike any technology they had seen, covered in scales or armor, with luminescent eyes that cut through the darkness. "What in God's name is that?" Cole whispered, echoing the silent question in every mind. Avery didn't respond. His eyes were locked on the screen, knowing that the answer to that question might change everything they thought they knew about their enemy, and about the war. The command center buzzed with a restrained urgency as the coordinates locked in, guiding them towards the unknown. Marcus stood at the helm, his gaze fixed on the vast expanse of space that stretched endlessly before them. The soft glow of the console cast a pale light on his face, highlighting the determination set in his jaw. "Initiate the jump sequence," Marcus ordered, his voice resonating with command. The crew responded in a chorus of clicks and taps, the final checks echoing through the ship like a drumbeat of impending discovery. The view outside warped subtly as space bent around them, the stars stretching into long streaks of light that painted the darkness with trails of white and blue. The sensation of moving through the cosmos at such unfathomable speed was disorienting yet exhilarating, the fabric of reality twisting at their command. Lieutenant Hawk monitored the navigation array closely, his eyes scanning the fluctuating data streams. "All systems stable, Captain. We're on course," he reported, his voice a calm constant in the sea of low-toned conversations and electronic beeps. The scent of recycled air mixed with a hint of ionization, an invisible reminder of the shield's constant struggle against cosmic radiation, filled the command center. Each breath was a taste of metal and electricity, a tangible sign of their isolation in the vast, uncharted territory. As they emerged from the jump, the streaks of light snapped back into distinct points, the universe righting itself around them. A new system unfolded before their eyes, a solitary star surrounded by a dance of planets and a scattering of asteroids that glistened like dust motes in a beam of sunlight. "Visual up," Marcus commanded. The main screen flickered to life, revealing the celestial bodies in high resolution. The beauty of it was stark, the silence of space making the scene before them appear as a frozen ballet of orbiting giants and spinning rocks. Dr. Emil Larson stepped up next to Marcus, his gaze captivated by the display. "Incredible," he breathed out, his voice low and filled with wonder. "No signs of habitation on initial scans. It seems we found a virgin system, untouched by sapient hands." Marcus nodded, his mind racing with the possibilities. "Keep scanning. There must be a reason they directed us here. What are we meant to find?" The mystery hung between them, palpable and pressing. As the crew delved deeper into their sensor readings, the subtle sounds of the ship at work, The distant echo of footsteps, the gentle whir of the life support system, the occasional clink of tools created a symphony of survival and exploration. Suddenly, a junior officer called out, "Captain, picking up an anomaly on the fourth planet. It doesn't match any natural formation we've cataloged before." "Put it on screen," Marcus ordered, his pulse quickening with the thrill of the unknown. The image shifted, zooming in on a structure distinctly artificial in shape, its geometry too perfect, too deliberate to be anything but constructed. As they stared at the enigmatic structure, Marcus felt the weight of their journey pressing down upon him. They were no longer just explorers or warriors. They were witnesses to a story that stretched beyond their understanding, a narrative woven through the very stars they sailed amongst. The secrets of this lonely planet awaited, and with each breath, the scent of cold space seemed to whisper of hidden truths just out of reach, ready to reshape everything they knew about the universe and their place within it. The image of the alien structure, sharp and imposing against the rugged terrain of the fourth planet, hung on the screen in the command center. Its angular architecture contradicted the chaotic natural world around it, where jagged mountains met swirling dust storms. "Enhance that sector," Marcus directed, his eyes narrowing as details of the structure emerged. Smooth, obsidian-like surfaces intersecting at precise angles, creating a form that seemed both alien and familiar. It was not merely a building, it was a beacon of unknown intent. Dr. Emil Larson, peering intently at the screen, murmured, "Its symmetry suggests it's not just functional but ceremonial, perhaps a temple or monument." His voice carried a mix of awe and scientific curiosity, reflecting the dual nature of their mission, exploration intertwined with the constant probing for meaning. The soft buzz of equipment and the distant sounds of crew members at work provided a steady backdrop to the tense atmosphere in the command center. The air tasted dry, recycled too many times, carrying a faint metallic sharpness that reminded everyone of their confinement within the ship. "Prepare a landing party. We're going down there," Marcus decided, turning to face his team. His command was met with nods of determination. Each member understood the risks and the necessity of their task. Lieutenant Hawk immediately began coordinating the preparations. "We'll need environmental suits and full armament. The atmosphere is thin, breathable for short periods, but hostile," he explained, his voice crisp, every syllable measured to convey both urgency and precision. As the crew readied themselves, the anticipation was palpable. The texture of their suits felt constrictive, yet reassuringly protective against the unknown. The clink of equipment being checked and secured, the soft thud of boots on the metal deck, and the muted rustle of maps and digital devices being prepped filled the air. Marcus, now in his suit, his helmet under his arm, addressed the team. "We're not just scientists and soldiers today. We're ambassadors to the unknown. Stay sharp. Stay together." The descent to the planet was a silent affair, the shuttle vibrating gently as it pierced the thin atmosphere. Outside, the barren landscape rushed up to meet them, the structure growing ever larger, its black surface gleaming dully under the weak sunlight of the distant star. Upon landing, the hatch opened with a hiss, releasing a gust of cold, thin air that carried the tang of alien minerals. The ground crunched under their boots as they made their way toward the structure, the sound oddly loud in the thin atmosphere. The structure's surface was cool to the touch, unnaturally smooth, as if molded by sophisticated tools beyond their understanding. Marcus ran his gloved hand along the material, each movement creating a soft whisper against the silence that enveloped the planet. As they approached the entrance, a series of lights flickered to life within the structure, a silent greeting or perhaps a warning. The air inside was stale, untouched by time, preserving the scent of a place long abandoned, or maybe never occupied. "Look at this," Dr. Larson called out, pointing to a series of intricate carvings that adorned the inner walls. The patterns were mesmerizing, complex, suggesting a language of geometry, and the lights embedded in the walls pulsed faintly, their glow illuminating intricate carvings that stretched from floor to ceiling. The symbols twisted in patterns that defied easy interpretation, shifting subtly when viewed from different angles. Marcus ran a gloved hand across one of the etched surfaces, feeling the unexpected warmth beneath his fingertips. The material was neither stone nor metal. It felt almost organic, like petrified muscle frozen in time. Dr. Larson crouched beside him, scanning the carvings with a handheld device. The screen flickered with incomplete translations, fragments of meaning pulled from mathematical similarities to known languages. "It's layered," he murmured. "Not just writing. This is some kind of interactive script." Lieutenant Hawk paced a few steps ahead, his weapon lowered but ready. The chamber's atmosphere carried a weight, as if the walls themselves were watching. The air was still, yet something unseen stirred just beneath the surface, a presence woven into the silence. "Captain," one of the expedition members called out, standing near a recessed section of the floor. "You need to see this." Marcus moved toward him, his boots pressing into a surface that absorbed sound unnaturally. The soldier had discovered a circular panel, its surface lined with grooves that spiraled inward like the growth rings of an ancient tree. As Marcus studied it, the lights in the room intensified, flaring with a brilliance that sent shadows skittering across the walls. Then the floor shifted. A deep vibration rolled through the chamber, subtle at first but growing stronger, as though something massive was awakening beneath them. Dust lifted in thin, swirling trails, disturbed for the first time in untold cycles. Hawk snapped his rifle up, his stance tense. "Captain, we need to move." "Hold position," Marcus ordered, his voice steady, despite the tightening coil in his chest. They had triggered something, but whether it was a defense mechanism or a message yet to be unraveled was still uncertain. The panel beneath them rotated, and a portion of the floor retracted with mechanical precision, revealing a descending passage lined with more glowing symbols. The air that rose from below carried an earthy musk, tinged with the faint bitterness of oxidized minerals, as though the depths of the structure had been sealed away from the elements for eons. Dr. Larson exhaled, his breath misting slightly. "Whatever's down there, it's still active." Marcus took a step toward the edge of the opening, peering down into the darkness below. Faint lights flickered along the walls of the passage, leading deeper into the unknown. The architecture here felt different, more refined, purposeful, as if designed not just for function, but for something ritualistic. "We go in," Marcus decided, locking eyes with his team. "Stay alert. This place isn't abandoned. It's waiting." One by one they descended, their footsteps swallowed by the void below. The walls seemed to close in around them, their surroundings shifting from mere exploration to something far more profound. Whatever lay ahead had been buried for a reason. Now it was waking up. Light. Marcus watched, his mind racing with questions. "Record everything. Every detail could be the key to understanding who built this place, and why." As they delved deeper into the structure, the mystery only deepened. What was intended as a simple exploratory mission was quickly becoming a journey into the heart of an ancient alien legacy. Each step forward a step into the labyrinth of history lost to the cosmos. The descent swallowed them whole, the narrow passage tightening as they moved deeper. The air grew heavier, dense with an unfamiliar musk, like damp stone mixed with something older, something that carried the weight of ages. The dim glow along the walls pulsed with an irregular rhythm, casting shifting patterns across the passage, as if the structure itself was breathing. Marcus led the way, his grip firm on his weapon, though instinct told him that steel alone wouldn't solve whatever mystery lay ahead. Each step sent soft echoes bouncing through the corridor, the sound absorbed too quickly, as if the walls were drinking in the disturbance of their presence. Hawk followed just behind, his head on a swivel. "Captain, this place is designed for something specific. The angles, none of them are random." Dr. Larson trailed a hand along the wall, his fingers tracing the carved grooves. "Not just design, function." His voice was hushed, reverent. "These aren't just symbols. This entire place is a mechanism." Ahead, the passage widened into an expansive chamber. A vast, circular pit yawned before them, lined with layered rings descending in perfect symmetry. Each ring was adorned with geometric carvings, their meaning elusive yet deliberate. Faint trails of light traced through the engravings, connecting them like a vast celestial map. Hawk swept the chamber with his rifle's mounted light. No dust buildup. That means it's been used, Marcus finished for him. He crouched near the edge of the pit, examining a set of depressions in the floor. Something heavy was moved here recently. Larson's scanner let out a sharp ping. He checked the readings, then looked up sharply. There's energy running through these walls. Low frequency, but it's there. This place isn't just old. It's alive. As if responding to his words, the central platform at the bottom of the pit flickered, its dark surface illuminating in intricate patterns that rippled outward in waves. A deep, resonant chime rolled through the chamber, vibrating through their bones. The sound wasn't mechanical, it was harmonic, like a voice too vast to be human. "Movement!" Hawk snapped, swinging his rifle toward the far side of the chamber. Marcus followed his line of sight. Shadows shifted at the edge of the light. Not random shapes, not flickering illusions. Forms, deliberate and watching. A slow, deliberate clicking sound filled the space. Not metallic, organic. Marcus lifted a fist, signaling a halt. His pulse thrummed in his ears, but his breathing remained steady. "Show yourselves," he commanded, his voice unwavering. The shadows moved again, and this time they stepped forward. Tall figures emerged, their forms encased in an intricate exoskeletal armor, their eyes like liquid pools of obsidian reflecting the dim glow of the chamber. Their movements were fluid, deliberate, calculated. Marcus locked eyes with the nearest figure. No weapons were raised yet. "They were waiting," Larson murmured, voice barely above a whisper. Marcus exhaled slowly. "No," he corrected. "They knew we would come." The figures stood motionless, their exoskeletal armor reflecting the shifting glow of the chamber. Their eyes, void-like, absorbing rather than reflecting light, locked onto Marcus and his team with a patience that suggested they had all the time in the universe. The low clicking sound continued, an eerie rhythm that pulsed through the air like the ticking of an unseen clock. Marcus tightened his grip on his weapon, but he did not raise it. The creatures were close enough that he could see the subtle movement beneath their plating, as if something beneath the armor was shifting, adjusting, sentient, calculating. Dr. Larson took a cautious step forward, his scanner emitting a soft chime before abruptly shutting off. The display flickered, its readings scrambled. "They're disrupting our instruments," he murmured, shaking the device. "Or they're forcing us to communicate another way." One of the beings moved, a slow, deliberate step, the sound of its footfall unnervingly muted against the chamber floor. It raised an elongated arm, and a series of symbols ignited across its gauntlet, glowing faintly in the dim light. The patterns pulsed, forming shapes that mirrored the carvings along the walls. "They're speaking," Larson whispered, his voice a thread of wonder and unease. Marcus exhaled, nodding. "Then let's listen." The symbols flickered faster, their pulses growing more complex. They weren't just repeating images. They were reacting, responding to the presence of humans. The alien tilted its head slightly, waiting. Hawk, ever the soldier, shifted his stance. "Captain, if this goes sideways, we need a fallback." Marcus didn't look away from the alien. Not yet. He raised his gloved hand, fingers outstretched in what he hoped was a universal sign of peace. The alien's eyes, if they could even be called that, remained fixed on him, unblinking, unreadable. Then, with the slow precision of a mathematician plotting the next movement of an equation, the creature mirrored his gesture, raising its own hand. A low vibration spread through the chamber, less a sound and more a pressure in the air, brushing against their skin like a wave rolling through a deep current. Marcus felt it settle in his chest, a sensation that wasn't entirely physical, like something unseen had brushed against his mind. Larson shuddered. "This isn't just speech, it's resonance. They're reaching out beyond language." The lights in the chamber intensified, casting long, spindly shadows across the walls. The figures moved in unison, stepping back toward the dark recesses of the room, as if beckoning the humans forward. Marcus didn't hesitate. He moved, not with blind confidence, but with the certainty that whatever was happening, it had already been set in motion long before their arrival. The chamber beyond the figures yawned open, revealing a vast, circular space with a towering monolith at its heart. Symbols spiraled across its surface, shifting and reforming as if responding to the presence of new observers. Larson let out a breath. We didn't just find a ruin. Marcus took another step, the weight of revelation pressing against him. We found a message. The monolith loomed before them, its dark surface alive with shifting symbols that pulsed in steady intervals. The chamber surrounding it stretched impossibly high, its ceiling lost in shadow, as if the structure itself extended beyond their perception. The air was dense, carrying a charge that prickled against their skin, making every movement feel heavier, as though the atmosphere was layered with unseen forces. Marcus took another step forward, his breath steady but deliberate. The monolith reacted instantly. The symbols shifted in rapid succession, morphing from static carvings into fluid patterns of light that cascaded across its smooth exterior. It wasn't just a relic. It was waiting for something. Or someone. Dr. Larson's fingers hovered over his scanner, though he hesitated before activating it. It's not just transmitting, he murmured. It's aware. The alien figures remained at the edges of the chamber, their posture unchanged, watching, studying. They had no weapons drawn, no aggressive stance, yet their stillness carried an unspoken expectation. Hawk, standing just behind Marcus, whispered, Captain, we need to be careful. We don't know if activating this thing could... The moment his words left his mouth, the monolith pulsed again. But this time the light did not just shift across its surface. It extended outward. A thin, translucent wave rippled through the chamber, passing over them like an unseen tide. Marcus's pulse quickened. He felt something in that wave. Not a sound, not a touch, but a presence. A whisper at the edge of thought. His mind recoiled at the unfamiliar sensation, yet it was not intrusive. It lingered, observing as much as he was. Larson sucked in a sharp breath. Captain, I think it's scanning us. Marcus kept his stance firm, resisting the instinct to retreat. Let it. The symbols slowed, their fluid motion settling into deliberate sequences. They repeated, forming patterns that no longer felt random. Larson's scanner flickered wildly before stabilizing, the data scrolling too fast to read. Marcus tightened his grip on his weapon, but he did not raise it. The creatures were close enough that he could see the subtle movement beneath their plating, as if something beneath the armor was shifting, adjusting, sentient, calculating. Dr. Larson took a cautious step forward, his scanner emitting a soft chime before abruptly shutting off. The display flickered, its readings scrambled. They're disrupting our instruments, he murmured, shaking the device. Or they're forcing us to communicate another way. One of the beings moved, a slow, deliberate step, the sound of its footfall unnervingly muted against the chamber floor. It raised an elongated arm, and a series of symbols ignited across its gauntlet, glowing faintly in the dim light. The patterns pulsed, forming shapes that mirrored the carvings along the walls. They're speaking, Larson whispered, his voice a thread of wonder and unease. Marcus exhaled, nodding. Then let's listen. The symbols flickered faster, their pulses growing more complex. They weren't just repeating images. They were reacting, responding to the presence of humans. The alien tilted its head slightly, waiting. Hawk, ever the soldier, shifted his stance. Captain, if this goes sideways, we need a fallback. Marcus didn't look away from the alien. Not yet. He raised his gloved hand, fingers outstretched in what he hoped was a universal sign of peace. The alien's eyes, if they could even be called that, remained fixed on him, unblinking, unreadable. Then, with the slow precision of a mathematician plotting the next movement of an equation, the creature mirrored his gesture, raising its own hand. A low vibration spread through the chamber, less a sound and more a pressure in the air, brushing against their skin like a wave rolling through a deep current. Marcus felt it settle in his chest, a sensation that wasn't entirely physical, like something unseen had brushed against his mind. Larson shuddered. This isn't just speech, it's resonance. They're reaching out beyond language. The lights in the chamber intensified, casting long, spindly shadows across the walls. The figures moved in unison, stepping back toward the dark recesses of the room, as if beckoning the humans forward. Marcus didn't hesitate. He moved, not with blind confidence, but with the certainty that whatever was happening, it had already been set in motion long before their arrival. The chamber beyond the figures yawned open, revealing a vast, circular space with a towering monolith at its heart. Symbols spiraled across its surface, shifting and reforming as if responding to the presence of new observers. Larson let out a breath. We didn't just find a ruin. Marcus took another step, the weight of revelation pressing against him. We found a message. The monolith loomed before them, its dark surface alive with shifting symbols that pulsed in steady intervals. The chamber surrounding it stretched impossibly high, its ceiling lost in shadow, as if the structure itself extended beyond their perception. The air was dense, carrying a charge that prickled against their skin, making every movement feel heavier, as though the atmosphere was layered with unseen forces. Marcus took another step forward, his breath steady but deliberate. The monolith reacted instantly. The symbols shifted in rapid succession, morphing from static carvings into fluid patterns of light that cascaded across its smooth exterior. It wasn't just a relic. It was waiting for something. Or someone. Dr. Larson's fingers hovered over his scanner, though he hesitated before activating it. It's not just transmitting, he murmured. It's aware. The alien figures remained at the edges of the chamber, their posture unchanged, watching, studying. They had no weapons drawn, no aggressive stance, yet their stillness carried an unspoken expectation. Hawk, standing just behind Marcus, whispered, Captain, we need to be careful. We don't know if activating this thing could... The moment his words left his mouth, the monolith pulsed again. But this time the light did not just shift across its surface. It extended outward. A thin, translucent wave rippled through the chamber, passing over them like an unseen tide. Marcus's pulse quickened. He felt something in that wave. Not a sound, not a touch, but a presence. A whisper at the edge of thought. His mind recoiled at the unfamiliar sensation, yet it was not intrusive. It lingered, observing as much as he was. Larson sucked in a sharp breath. Captain, I think it's scanning us. Marcus kept his stance firm, resisting the instinct to retreat. Let it. The symbols slowed, their fluid motion settling into deliberate sequences. They repeated, forming patterns that no longer felt random. Larson's scanner flickered wildly before stabilizing, the data scrolling too fast to read. These aren't just coordinates, Larson whispered. His voice was barely audible over the electric stillness in the chamber. This is a record, a warning. Marcus turned to him. Warning us of what? Before Larson could respond, the monolith's light intensified, a column of luminescence shooting toward the unseen ceiling. The walls trembled, not from any physical impact, but as if reacting to a force too vast to be contained. A new shape formed in the shifting symbols, no longer abstract, no longer cryptic. A fleet. Countless ships, their sleek forms etched in light, surrounding a planet eerily similar to Earth. Hawk exhaled sharply. Captain, that's an invasion map. The realization settled over them like a shroud. The monolith wasn't just a relic of an ancient civilization. It was a message left behind for those who would come next. And the war it warned of had not yet begun. The fleet of ships etched in light hovered above the monolith's surface, their forms shifting with eerie precision. Marcus stood frozen, his mind racing as he traced the luminous outlines of their formation. The scale was impossible to ignore. This was no skirmish. It was an armada. Dr. Larson's fingers danced over his scanner, his face pale under the glow. These ships, they aren't from the past. The energy signatures in this projection, Captain, they're recent. This isn't a record. Marcus turned sharply. Then what is it? Larson swallowed, eyes flickering between the data streams flooding his screen. It's a forecast, a premonition. If these readings are accurate, this fleet isn't just real. It's already moving. A slow, deliberate clicking echoed through the chamber. The alien figures at the edge of the room had shifted, no longer passive observers. Their heads tilted in unison, the subtle movement speaking of understanding rather than aggression. One of them raised a slender hand, and the monolith responded. The luminous fleet warped, dissolving into scattered points of light that reformed into something else. A single planet. A world wrapped in a web of pulsating rings. Marcus exhaled, his gaze locked onto the image. That's not Earth. Hawk stepped closer, his voice low. But it's a target. Larson was already working through the data. The structure of these rings, it's defensive. This planet is bracing for an attack. Marcus studied the projection, his pulse steady but taut. Then why are we seeing it? He turned to the silent beings watching them. Why show us this? The alien's response was immediate. A new set of symbols burned into the monolith's surface, appearing faster than before, their urgency unmistakable. Larson's scanner processed them with a rapid stream of translations. His breath caught. Captain, their coordinates. Marcus felt a shift in the air, a weight settling over them. Coordinates to where? Larson's voice barely carried over the quiet tension. To the battlefield. The revelation sent a ripple through the team. Hawk's grip on his rifle tightened. We're being recruited. Marcus clenched his jaw, his thoughts a cascade of possibilities. The monolith had not been a warning alone. It was a summons, an urgent call to arms from a force that had long since faded, but had left this beacon behind, knowing that someday someone would find it. He turned back to the alien figures, the quiet guardians of this lost knowledge. This war, who is coming? For the first time, the tallest of the beings stepped forward. It raised an arm, tracing a shape in the air. A silhouette emerged from the monolith, its angular form monstrous, its presence suffocating, even in light alone. Larson's voice was barely a whisper. We are not the first to stand here. Marcus's eyes darkened. And if we don't act, we won't be the last. The strategy was in place, but execution would determine survival. Marcus stood at the command table, the projection of the asteroid belt shifting as his team refined their calculations. Every variable had to be accounted for. Mass, velocity, fragmentation risk. One miscalculation could compromise the entire ambush. Hawk studied the projected enemy fleet formation. They're disciplined, but not invincible. If we time the detonations right, we can fracture their front line before they even realize they're being herded. Marcus nodded. Which means we need those charges placed with surgical precision. We'll use proximity triggers on the largest asteroids. No visible detonators, no warning. We let the debris field do the damage for us. Larson scrolled through additional data. We should account for chain reactions. If one explosion displaces an asteroid into another, we can create a cascading effect. A battlefield that fights for us. Marcus turned to him. Can we rig secondary charges that will detonate based on impact velocity? Larson frowned, already working through the calculations. It's risky, but yes. We'd need to calibrate the sensors to ignore minor collisions and only trigger on high-speed impacts. If we do it right, it'll look like natural debris movement, until it isn't. Then make it happen. Marcus shifted his focus back to the tactical display. Now about the engagement itself. We don't face them head-on. We use the chaos to strike fast and disappear before they regroup. Hawk's expression remained sharp. Hit and fade tactics. Divide their forces before they can coordinate a response. Exactly, Marcus confirmed. We need to make them fight blind. Jamming signals will be crucial. If they can't communicate, they can't adjust. One of the alien figures stepped forward, pressing a sequence into the monolith. The projection adjusted, highlighting weak points in the enemy fleet structure. The message was clear. Strike here, and the foundation cracks. Marcus absorbed the information. They're showing us where the pressure points are. If we disable their command relays first, their cohesion crumbles. Larson adjusted the feed. Looks like those ships act as distributed hubs. They're not centralized. They function in clusters. Marcus considered this. Then we don't take down their lead ship. We sever the connections between them. break their ability to act as one. Hawk exhaled. If we get this right, they'll be fighting ghosts. Marcus's gaze darkened. And if we don't, we'll be vaporized before we get a second shot. Silence settled over the room, not from doubt, but from the sheer gravity of what lay ahead. The battle wouldn't be decided by brute force. It would be determined by deception, by manipulating the battlefield itself. The alien figure watched Marcus with an unreadable expression. It reached out, pressing a final sequence into the monolith. The projection collapsed into a single set of coordinates. Marcus nodded. It's time. They had built the trap. Now they would spring it. The fleet emerged from the void, a black tide spilling across the starfield. Their formation was rigid, disciplined, an unbroken phalanx of destruction. Against such precision, most species would falter, paralyzed by sheer scale, by the crushing inevitability of superior numbers. But humans had never been most species. Marcus stood at the tactical station, his gaze locked onto the projected battlefield. The asteroid field sprawled ahead like a maze of jagged teeth, hiding their invisible trap beneath layers of cold, floating rock. The charges had been placed. The jammers were ready. Every piece of the battlefield had been bent to human will. Now all that was left was to make them walk into it. Hawk's voice cut through the tension. They've entered the kill zone. A single breath passed before Marcus gave the order. Detonate! The void ignited. The largest asteroids ruptured first, shattering into a cascade of stone and steel. Fragments the size of warships spiraled into the enemy formation, turning precision into chaos. Ships swerved, colliding, their rigid discipline unraveling in an instant. The second wave of explosions followed, carefully staggered to prolong the confusion. What had seemed like an empty debris field had become a battlefield that fought for humanity. Larson's fingers flew over the controls. Their fleet is splitting, trying to re-establish command links. Marcus's voice was ice-edged. Then we cut them off before they can. Hawk's team launched a burst of jamming interference. The enemy's signals collapsed mid-transmission. Their ships, designed to act in unison, now found themselves stranded, isolated nodes in a shattered network. Then came the strike. Human ships darted from their hiding places, hitting where the monolith had told them to. Not brute force, not head-on engagement, surgical precision. They severed relay points, disabled key vessels, turned the enemy's numbers against them. The void burned. Enemy ships flailed, firing blindly, hitting each other as much as the humans. What had begun as a march of inevitable conquest had become a desperate struggle to survive. Larson whispered as if afraid to disturb the moment. We're winning. Marcus's eyes didn't waver. Not yet. The largest enemy warship, its hull bristling with weapons, cut through the chaos, forging a brutal path toward the heart of the battlefield. It wasn't retreating. It was hunting. Marcus watched its trajectory, saw the pattern, understood the mistake they had made. It wasn't just a battleship. It was the keystone of their command structure. It had waited, let the others fall, and now it was angling for a killing blow. Hawk saw it too. Captain, if that thing gets through... Marcus was already moving. It won't. He adjusted the last set of detonation sequences, his hands steady. One final explosion, one last trick. The battlefield had been designed to fight for them, and now it would consume the last threat standing. The last charge detonated. An asteroid, long dormant, splintered apart, sending a wall of debris crashing down. The enemy warship turned too late. The battlefield itself swallowed them whole. Silence followed. Marcus exhaled. Now we've won. The battlefield lay in ruins, a graveyard of shattered warships and drifting wreckage. The void was silent now, save for the slow rotation of debris caught in the dying gravitational pull of the largest asteroid fragments. What had once been an armada, an unstoppable force, had been reduced to splintered remnants scattered like ashes across the black. Marcus stood at the bridge, eyes locked onto the tactical display. The enemy's command ship was gone, consumed by the final trap. Their formation had collapsed, their advantage turned against them. There would be no resurgence, no second wave. The battle had ended the moment humanity refused to fight on their terms. Larson exhaled, disbelief still lingering in his expression. They never expected this. They didn't think we'd turn the battlefield itself into a weapon. Marcus nodded, his gaze steady. They thought we'd meet them head-on. They didn't understand that humans never fight the war we're given. We fight the war we create. The alien figures in the chamber had not moved. They had watched every maneuver, every trap, every calculated strike unfold without a word. Now the tallest one took a single step forward, placing a hand against the monolith once more. The symbol shifted, reforming into something new. Larson's scanner translated before he could even speak. The meaning was simple. You are worthy. The weight of those words settled over the crew, unspoken but understood. This had not been just a war. It had been a test, a battle not just of strength, but of adaptability, of cunning, of survival. Marcus exhaled slowly. This wasn't just a warning for us. It was a warning for them. He turned toward the alien figures, his voice even. You knew they were coming. You knew what they would do. The tallest one inclined its head, the gesture slow, deliberate. Hawk frowned. If this was a test, why help us? Why give us the strategy? Larson answered before the aliens could. Because they needed to see it for themselves. His voice was quiet, filled with realization. They needed proof that humans could stand at their side, not as survivors, but as something greater. Marcus turned back to the monolith, watching the shifting symbols. The war they had fought today was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, filled with forces that saw humans as fragile, expendable, lesser. But that assumption had died in this battle. They thought we'd fall, Marcus murmured, the weight of victory settling into something heavier, something permanent. Instead, they watched. He glanced back at his team, at the survivors who had turned the battlefield into a proving ground. And they learned what we are. The monolith's final message solidified, the symbols glowing like embers in the dark. When Deathworlders took the field, aliens could only watch in awe. Marcus gave a small, sharp smile. They won't forget this.